show powered by Electric Bikes of Charleston. Hale McGranahan joining us from the BigSpur.com, Mad Dog and myself, JB, until 2 o'clock today. And it is finally here, Hale. Rivalry week, Clemson, Carolina, a lot on the line. The records look good. For the first time in a long time, both of these teams have something to play for. Glad to have you, and happy Thanksgiving, my man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. I figured since I was pinch hitting for Whittle that I would wear my Canes baseball hat in his honor. So yeah, I'm glad to be joining y'all for the biggest week of the season.
Dude, yeah. Well, you're a valuable guy to have this conversation with, because obviously we're going to talk about all the on the field stuff and things like that. But if you win, this is your second win in 3 seasons against that team in the upstate. You are out recruiting them right now inside of the state of South Carolina. So there's a different angle here. You know, Carolina maybe is turning the corner once again and getting the upper hand on those guys as far as signing good prospects and things like that. But hey, look, you know, they had to take care of Wofford this past weekend. Got off to a slow start. It was a little stale for a while, and then they kicked it in gear in the second half, and they won very comfortably by 44 points, 56-12. And now here we are. The offense is playing their best ball at the right time of the year. The defense has been pretty sensational throughout the year. Clemson has had their issues, but they're playing to win an ACC championship and potentially get into the college football playoff. South Carolina is trying to backdoor their way into the college football playoff with 3 losses. I mean, this is an exciting of a Palmetto Bowl as we've had since the golden years of Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, I don't think you could ask for anything more than what's at stake right here. Maybe both teams being undefeated. That would be pretty amazing. But at that point, they would probably both be in the college football playoff for all intents and purposes. So this is in some ways maybe a play-in game for it. We'll see. Of course, if Clemson is in the ACC championship and they win that, they're in regardless. So obviously maybe it doesn't quite have as much meaning for them depending on how things shake out in the ACC. But from all the implications with all that outside stuff, that's all well and good. It's still this game, and even if it wasn't college football playoff implications on the line, it would still be a big deal. Obviously, people have no issues getting up for this one, but it is certainly cool that this outside stuff is a part of the conversation right now.
Yeah, I think that, you look at the slate this weekend, you look at the slate and the ranked v ranked matchups, you know, the one that really, obviously you always have your traditional rivalries in Ohio State and Michigan and Auburn, Alabama. Auburn, Alabama just got a little bit more spicy after the Tigers took care of Oklahoma late on Saturday night, or took care of Texas A&M late on Saturday night. Alabama makes the trip to Oklahoma, and they got shellacked. So all of a sudden, what we thought was just going to be another Roll Tide Saturday afternoon in the Iron Bowl, that's not what it looks like anymore. But Auburn isn't ranked inside the top 20 or top 15 potentially either. You know, A&M, obviously, with what happened to them the other night, it's taken a little shine off of the Texas A&M Texas rivalry. Michigan's not so like when if you're a casual college football fan and you're looking for a good game to watch this weekend on Rivalry Saturday, Clemson, Carolina, not only is it going to jump off the screen, it follows College Game Day at noon. So while we have all the hype in this state and we understand it, finally, for the first time in a long time, the rest of the country is going to be interested in the football game because of the national impacts it could have.
Yeah, that makes it all the more intriguing from that standpoint. And the more eyes on this game, the better. I think that's probably why so many people are frustrated with Clemson apparently deciding to not play this game on a Friday. Like, if this game was being played on Friday night, like you have it in a primetime spot with even more people probably tuning in to watch. But yeah, I mean you can't ask for anything else. I mean, there's the national intrigue is bigger than we've seen probably ever for this game, quite frankly. And uh,
Yeah.
anyone who before this season was rolling their eyes at a 12-team playoff and complaining about, there just aren't that many teams who deserve a shot, and it's going to water down the regular season and all that nonsense. Like, what do you have to say now? Like, clearly that stuff is gone out the window in a hurry, and look no further than this game. I mean, yeah, it means something obviously to
Yeah.
people in this state, but now it's a heck of a lot more interesting to people who don't necessarily have a dog in the fight. But then again, they kind of do in a way, because there are plenty of teams fans of teams who are going to be paying attention to this game, because uh, if one team is able to get in, Carolina or Clemson, it could keep their team out. So like it builds intrigue. I think the best way to kind of compare it is with Major League Baseball expanding its playoffs and opening up however many more teams that have a shot at making the playoffs, and all of a sudden you're talking about meaningful games at the end of a baseball season, when before, like, they literally meant nothing. So uh, I think it's great. Hopefully it gets to 16 at some point, but right now it's really fun to follow and try to figure out.
I think to your point, this past weekend we were all taking a look at we were following along in the Colorado game and the Arizona State game. Teams that why would we ever care about them? But we're watching that. Okay, all right, because if they lose and this team wins, that staying up to the wee hours of the morning to figure out what in the world is going to happen with Texas A&M over on the plains or whatever it was. You're right, Hale. I agree with you 100%. And when this thing goes to, I know they're planning to go to 14, but I think we all know it's going to go to 16. It's going to make this conversation even larger and more meaningful. I think it's the best thing in the history of the sport. I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to it.
Yeah, I mean, if the FCS level, I mean, they've had a 16-team playoff for teams like Furman and Wofford since I can remember. I just why wouldn't you want to do that for the highest level of the sport? Why wouldn't you want to create more meaningful games? Why wouldn't you want to give more teams with something bigger to play for than just, hey, we had an 8-4 season and we feel really good about it because we weren't sure if we were going to make a bowl game. Like, now all of a sudden South Carolina's in the national conversation, and a year ago they wouldn't have been. People would have been patting them on the back, saying they're having a nice season, giving Shane Beamer a lot of credit, and oohing and on about Lenore Sellers and Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard and whoever else. But it it just means more now. I hate to say that, but it really does.
Yeah, it does.
right.
It's amazing,
Let's-
but yeah, you're right.
Well, I know
Carries a
there's
lot of weight.
reason why that tagline exists.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we do have Brad Crawford coming on tomorrow, Hale. Before we get into some specific team stuff with you, if South Carolina beats Clemson on Saturday, do they deserve to be in the college football playoff if there is a 3-loss team that is going to be selected? Does South Carolina deserve to be that team?
I think they probably should, even though they've lost the head-to-head with Alabama and lost the head-to-head with Ole Miss, assuming those teams still have 3 losses after next week. That's my only concern, I guess I should say, with saying South Carolina deserves to have a chance. And I know there are probably a lot of people who are like hate replying in the chat box right now to what I just said, but that gives me a little bit of pause when I try to figure out what this committee might decide. But at the same time, like, if you look at who they lost to, LSU, and they probably wouldn't have lost the game if Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt. Barely got beat at Alabama by a team they were supposed to lose to by 3 touchdowns. Didn't play great against Ole Miss, but they kept an Ole Miss offense pretty well in check. I mean, almost kicked a field goal in the second half, and that was it. So it wasn't totally terrible. I mean, there are people out there who, the anti-SEC crowd who will say, "Oh, they got boat raced by Ole Miss. They don't deserve to be in." They didn't get boat raced by Ole Miss. That is not an Ole Miss boat racing by any stretch of the imagination. I think they deserve to get in as a 3-loss team. I would think they deserve to get in as a 3-loss team ahead of teams like SMU, definitely Clemson. Obviously, Clemson would be a 3-loss team, and Miami. Like SMU and Miami are both ahead of Carolina in the standings right now, and probably will be tomorrow. But those two teams have won 20 games between the two of them, and their best win is against an 8-3 team, Duke, who's nowhere near this conversation right now. Duke's not even in the top 25. So people who want to try to prop up like
Right.
the on-field results matter. Let's look a little deeper into what some of these on-field results are for some of these other teams who are supposedly more deserving of a spot just because they have fewer losses against a schedule that pales in comparison to the one South Carolina's played, pales in comparison to the one Ole Miss and Alabama have played, pales in comparison to 6-5 Florida or 6-5 Oklahoma. Like, so in a roundabout way to answer that question, if they beat Clemson, they're going to be the hottest team in the country. Lenore Sellers, look at his stats right now. If they gave out the Heisman Trophy based on just November production, he would be the favorite by a significant margin. So if you got a team in South Carolina that's 9-3, playing better than anybody else in the country, and doing it at the most important position in the sport, with the guy who's playing better than anybody else, like that would be pretty hard to keep that combination out, in my opinion.
That is a really incredible point about Lenore Sellers. And I know that nobody gives away a trophy for 1 month of the season. But to your point, like putting value on the quarterback position, right? And let's put value on the quarterback position. And because that's what everybody does. Everybody wants to talk about the quarterback. Well, if we're going to give Lenore Sellers, or the rest of the country is going to give Lenore Sellers as much credit as they're giving him right now, which he deserves and he's earned, then they also need to give the football team some credit in the LSU debacle, because he didn't even play in the second half, and he was playing very well in the first half. So if he's going to be part of the conversation, if they upend the Tigers this weekend and they're 9-3, and you got a lot of people saying, I just don't know how we keep this team out. They've won 6 straight games. They're beating the crap out of everybody they play. He's the best quarterback in the nation right now. He's better than all these other guys. Then that should be part of that conversation too, not to mention the poor officiating. And because if you can talk about Alabama, Hale, right? Well, you can talk about that all you want to, which it is part of the conversation. Carolina, I can't say should have won the game, but certainly had an opportunity to pull off a stunner in T-Town. They should have won the LSU game, and everybody with a pulse and a brain knows that. So to your point about Sellers, I think that's another angle you would take in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if he throws for 300 more yards and Clemson has another couple touchdowns, runs for, whatever, 55. I mean, even just right now, if you go look at his stats, a website called cfbstats.com, look at the national passing stats, individual passing stats. You can sort it by month. And if you sort it by November, like his numbers are at or like first or second in the country. And in some cases, like pretty significant margin. And granted, he's played in 4 games, whereas some guys have only played in maybe 2 or 3. Even just the averages or his rating, like it's unbelievable. And he's a dual threat too. It's not like he's just passing the ball. We all know how effective he is and what kind of a difference he can make as a runner. So it's it's been a lot of fun to watch him over this last month, and I think it goes without saying, if he's not playing at this level, we're not even having this type of conversation right now of whether they should or shouldn't be in, because they probably would have lost one of these games along the way. But you know what? Since the month of November began, they've won 2 games against teams that were in the college football playoff top 25. Still are right now. Obviously, they're rated a little higher, ranked a little higher when South Carolina played them. And if they beat Clemson, that'll be 3. And that'll be 3 more than a lot of teams that are in this conversation for a playoff spot have all season. So, again, if you want to penalize them for losing to an LSU team that was pretty good when they played them, and losing at Alabama and losing to Ole Miss, and again, there are people who are, hey, Ole Miss lost to Florida, who's 6-5. Hey, Alabama lost at Oklahoma, who's now 6-5. Like, those are still blue blood schools. They might not be having the season that they wanted, but you know what? Those 6-5 teams are a hell of a lot better than the 5-6 Virginia and 5-6 Virginia Tech teams that are going to be playing this weekend to see if they can get bowl eligible.
That's a great point. South Carolina opened as a 3-point dog against the Tigers. That has already been bet down to 2.5. Clemson 2.5-point favorites this weekend. Hale, and knowing what we know about the Clemson football team and who they are and who they've beaten, and off to a slow start, demolished by Georgia, got onto a roll there, got the offense in gear. Obviously, South Carolina is playing their best football over the last month. What are you paying attention to in the ball game this week, especially early on? Is there something that you feel like might give you a feel for which way this sucker might go? And we do know this: it's going to be cold as crap up there. So if you're headed to the ball game, the high in the upstate on Saturday is only like 46 degrees. So it's going to be a little chilly that morning as you're having your liquor and preparing to walk in.
Well, I will not be having any liquor as I prepare to walk in, so I'm going to have to dress warm. They've got an open air press box, and it's going to be in the shade. So I'll probably be colder than anyone who's sitting out in the stands. So I want everybody to feel bad for me right now. Okay, stop feeling bad for me.
Answer. I was going to say, Hill, if they can cheer in that press box, surely you can drink.
Yeah. Yeah. So as far as the actual game is concerned, JB asked about things. What was it? Things like at the beginning that might tell me how it could go. Is that what you're asking? Sorry, I got sidetracked there.
Yeah, I think what sort of things would indicate early,
a trend,
kind of
something early.
Projection to the outcome.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. Yeah. Sorry. So last time these two teams played up there, I think we all remember Carolina got into a pretty significant hole, and when they were down 14-0 or 14-3, whatever it was, I don't think anybody could have imagined what ensued after that. And granted, if South Carolina's down 14-0 again this weekend, it probably not going to be the same type of ending, just based on common logic. Like, it's kind of hard to do. I think if you're South Carolina, if you're able to get to Cade Klubnik and knock him down a couple times and force Clemson to have to throw the ball, like if you can keep that run game, keep Phil Maffa somewhat hemmed up, and make things tough to come by on the ground for Clemson's running game, I think that would probably be a good sign of what's to come potentially if you're Carolina, especially if you have to force them to get one-dimensional. Like if Carolina can get ahead and make Klubnik have to beat them, have to stand behind that offensive line, which is pretty beat up, and throw the ball downfield to some receivers who are certainly not to the caliber of receiver that we've seen at Clemson, though it's been a while over the years. I think you would like Carolina's chances if that's how it sort of starts.
I'll say this:
the Clemson
I
offense
agree
has
with you.
been interesting. Yeah. Go ahead.
No,
Jason,
I was just going to agree. I agree with you, and I'll also take it a little step further. Beamer's coached against Clemson 3 times. In all 3 of those games, the Tigers have gotten off to a good start. Remember the defensive touchdown last year? Carolina, of course, tied it up and then couldn't. It was a field goal game. Kind of a boring game after that. Got in the hole in 2022 up there. Got in the hole in 2021. Never recovered in Columbia. So, yeah, I think getting off. And this team, Carolina, has started well this season, where Carolina's gotten in trouble, with the exception of Alabama and Ole Miss, where they fell behind early, and we know what happened there. There have been times in games, A&M, LSU, Missouri, even Old Dominion, where Carolina's got off to a good start, and then there's been a lull for a little bit where other teams have gotten back in the game. I think if you're forcing Clemson to throw it a whole lot, Hale, like you said, that's probably good for South Carolina and their pass rush. I mean, and I don't know. Do you know how beat up their O-line is? Are they getting anybody back this week? I know there's a couple guys out for the year, but I haven't looked.
Yeah, I don't know what their status is for this week. I'd have to refresh my memory on what things looked like last week. Again, I don't know for sure, but I would guess that there's at least maybe one guy who was held last week or whatever who's probably going to be available this week. Again, I don't know exactly how it's looking for them, but I would assume that they're probably in a little bit better position than they were against the Citadel, kind of like maybe South Carolina was at the tight end position. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Either way, like they're going to be pretty beat up. That's for sure. Maybe not quite to the same extent South Carolina was last year along the offensive line, but they're not in a good spot right there. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's rare for them. They normally don't have injury issues. But
why is that?
I mean, I don't know. You tell me. You have a theory?
I don't know.
They have a better trainer than we do.
No, it's better strength and conditioning program. No, I think it's because they historically, when they've been really good, they've played a lot of blowout games, and their guys don't have to play as many snaps. I mean, that's probably the long and short answer when you're beating teams, as we saw this past weekend, 50-something to 10.
Right.
You know, they're not playing as much. The wear and tear is not there. But yeah, you know, they don't have a lot of depth at running back either behind Maffa.
No.
So yeah, I mean, you know, I hesitate to get into it too much and just assume they're not going to play the game of their life this weekend just because of the history. But if you do look at how it's setting up, you know, Carolina's strength obviously is the pass rush, and Carolina's got the 12th ranked run defense in the country as well. I mean, it's not like teams have run all over them. So I think line of scrimmage wise, South Carolina's probably got a good opportunity.
Yeah, I mean,
Hale, before we get you out of here, I want to ask you real quick before we get you out of here, Hale, about some of the head-to-head recruiting that's going on between that team in the Upstate and South Carolina, and how this weekend could affect any of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think there's going to be much of an effect, quite frankly. I mean, they're going head-to-head for I think just one guy at this point in the 2025 class, and Donovan Murph, and I think Carolina's in a good spot regardless. He took his official visit to Clemson this past weekend for the Citadel game. It's after being at the A&M game and the Missouri game in Columbia. I don't know if he's planning to go back as an unofficial visitor this week to watch this game. But like I said, I don't know that there's necessarily going to be a shift one way or another. Like if Clemson wins, I don't think that's going to be like a sign that they're going to have a shot to pull ahead in this recruitment and catch South Carolina, because they are behind. Like Carolina's, you know, got the nose right now, and it's probably more than just a single nose at that. So then looking ahead to 2026, I mean, Off the top of my head, and I'm sure there's some guys like some offensive linemen in state who they're going after, but I don't know that there's a ton of head-to-heads in 2026. Again, just off the top of my head between these two schools. I mean, they really don't recruit head-to-head a whole lot. I mean, in 2025, they both went after Amari Adams. There have been some other defensive linemen in addition to Amari Adams. Logan Brooking, tight end from Savannah, who's committed to Clemson, was a big Carolina target. I mean, there are a couple every year, but it's not like, half these classes for each side are guys who are, considering the two schools. So it's not really the head-to-head type of matchup that maybe some folks would assume.
Well, Hale, here we go. You're going to have plenty to write about this week with this ball game being played this weekend, and as much on the line as there is with the playoffs and recruiting and, just good old-fashioned bragging rights in the Palmetto Bowl as well. Can't wait to see it all kick off at noon on Saturday. We all hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for what you do. TheBigSpur.com is full of Hale McGranahan stuff right now. We'd encourage all of you to check it out. And apparently there's a big deal going on right now. Right, boys?
Yeah, man.
For, special code for listeners of the show that aren't members of the Big Spur. You can use the code BIGSPUR50. That's Big Spur, then the number 50, numerical. Don't spell 50 out. It won't work. Half off of an annual membership. The good folks at 24/7 Sports sent that to me and said, hey, you should share this on your show. And we want to see if people join VIP membership. You get to go talk to me and Hale all day on the message board. That's awesome sometimes. Mm-hmm. Unless you cross us. Nah, okay. Well, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of neat. It's one of the largest sports message boards in all of sports. TheBigSpur.com Gamecock message board. Lots of traffic there. We don't have as many members as some sites, but we have a heck of a community there. It's a lot of fun, and plus with everything going on soon with the portal and recruiting and coaching changes around the country, you want to be on TheBigSpur.com to catch the VIP info. So BigSpur50, BIGSPUR, the number 50, for half off an annual membership. That means it ends up being, if you pay about $4.99 a month, and if you decide to pay full price, which we welcome as well, you get Paramount Plus for free with that. So if the wife you like to watch Yellowstone or whatever's on Paramount Plus, you can save money that way, paying full price and getting that for free with your Big Spur membership.
BigSpur.com. Hale, have a wonderful week, man. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, that sounds good. Appreciate you guys as always. Hope the three of y'all have a great Thanksgiving, and same to everyone else who's watching and listening and doing whatever to follow this show. Appreciate it, each and every one of you.
What hat is that?
Thank you, brother.
It's I wore it in honor of Whittle. It's the Canes baseball hat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Kind of like Charlotte a little bit, maybe Central Michigan, or maybe you were a closet Central Michigan fan. Happy Jim McElwain, the Swamp Donkey, retired. I didn't know.
Why is he retiring all of a sudden? What happened there?
There's this picture of a shark. I
don't know.
It's a dolphin this time.
Is it?
I wasn't sure if it was a stallion or something.
I
don't know.
That's awesome.
He just can't help himself.
Maybe it was a stallion.
Thanks, Dale.